in South Bend, Indiana, 1944. A young designer slides a set of sketches across a conference table to Studebaker executives. Sketches his boss has never seen. Within hours, he's fired. Within days, he's hired back by the same company, but this time directly, cutting out the middleman who made his career possible. Within years, he'll unleash a styling revolution that will humiliate his former mentor and shake Detroit to its foundations. This is the story of the most toxic design rivalry in automotive history, a blood feud between two titans that spawned the cars that defined an era. One man took credit for everything. The other man took revenge. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel and tell us what drives your car passion. From Verlin's Autotorium, this is Hidden Car Heroes. In 1938, Virgil Exner joined Raymond Loewy's industrial design firm and assumed responsibility for the Studebaker account. It should have been the opportunity of a lifetime. Raymond Loewy was already a household name, the industrial design wizard who'd made his mark on everything from locomotives to lipstick tubes. Working for Loewy meant access, prestige, a masterclass in how to navigate the treacherous waters of corporate America. But Virgil Exner, born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in 1909, Exner had clawed his way up from humble beginnings with nothing but raw talent and burning ambition. He'd studied art at Notre Dame, worked as an advertising illustrator, paid his dues at General Motors' art and color section. By the time Loewy recruited him, Exner was hungry for recognition, hungry to prove himself, hungry to make his mark on the world. And Raymond Loewy? He was busy being Raymond Loewy, schmoozing clients, gracing magazine covers, building an empire with his name on every door. The actual design work? That's what people like Virgil Exner were for. At first, it seemed to work. Exner dove into the Studebaker account with evangelical fervor. He studied every line, every curve, every proportion. He sketched constantly. And slowly, inevitably, he began to develop his own vision. A vision that didn't always align with whatever Raymond Loewy claimed was the direction. Exner felt Loewy took credit for designs that weren't his own. This wasn't paranoia. This was pattern recognition. Design after design would emerge from Loewy's studio with Loewy's signature proudly displayed, while the men who actually held the pencils remained anonymous. It was the way the industry worked. It was the way Loewy's business model worked. The tension simmered, then it boiled, then it exploded. Here's where the story gets delicious. It's 1943, and World War II is grinding toward its conclusion. American manufacturers are already planning for the post-war boom, the moment when soldiers return home and want to buy cars, houses, washing machines, the whole American dream package. For car companies, the question is urgent. What will the post-war automobile look like? Studebaker is particularly anxious. They're a smaller player competing against giants like GM and Ford. They need something revolutionary, something that will make America stop and stare. And Virgil Exner, working in Loewy's South Bend studio, has an idea. Actually, he has more than an idea. He has sketches, revolutionary sketches, designs for a car that would break with pre-war conventions, lower, sleeker, more integrated. A car that looked like it came from the future, not the past. Exner worked on some of his designs in secret, and when his successful auto designs for Studebaker were made public in 1944, Loewy went ballistic and fired Exner. Let's unpack what happened here. Exner went around Loewy, around his own boss, and presented designs directly to Studebaker management. In the design world, this is the nuclear option. This is career suicide. This is declaring war. Except Virgil Exner didn't commit career suicide. He committed career homicide of Raymond Loewy's control over him. Because Studebaker loved what they saw. They loved it so much that he was fired by Loewy and was hired directly by Studebaker in South Bend, Indiana. Same office, same desk, different paycheck, and now Raymond Loewy couldn't touch him. Imagine Loewy's rage. One of his own employees, someone he'd given a career to, had gone behind his back, stolen the client's confidence, and effectively declared independence. But it gets worse. much worse. Exner was hired immediately by Studebaker as their chief styling engineer. There, Exner was involved in some of their first post-war car designs and was the final designer of the celebrated 1947 Studebaker Champion Starlight Coupe. The 1947 Studebaker Champion Starlight became one of the most celebrated automotive designs of the immediate post-war era. It was genuinely revolutionary, a car that broke with the boxy pre-war conventions and introduced flowing, integrated styling that predicted the future of automotive design. Car magazines swooned. The public lined up to buy them. Studebaker's slogan said it all: first by far with a post-war car. And who got credit? Loewy was publicly credited for the design, however, which intensified the rivalry between the two designers. I'm going to say that again. Virgil Exner did the work. Raymond Loewy got the credit. Exner is actually listed as the sole inventor on the design patent. The legal documentation, the official record, names Virgil Exner as the creator. But in the press, in the magazines, in the public consciousness, Raymond Loewy, genius designer, strikes again. This is where the blood feud truly begins. This is where professional rivalry transforms into something darker, something personal, something that will drive both men for the next 2 decades. With rivalry between Loewy and Exner, Exner had to leave Studebaker but was hired by the Chrysler Corporation in 1949. Why did Exner have to leave Studebaker? He'd won, hadn't he? He'd escaped Loewy's shadow, gotten hired directly by Studebaker, designed a hit car. What happened? The truth is murky, buried in corporate politics and carefully worded press releases. But the pattern is clear. Raymond Loewy still had influence with Studebaker management. The relationship between Loewy's firm and Studebaker went back years, involved multiple contracts, carried weight. And Loewy, you can bet, made it known that he couldn't work with Studebaker while Virgil Exner was there. So Exner was pushed out. Again. But this time he landed at Chrysler Corporation, a much bigger stage, with much bigger budgets, and much bigger opportunities for revenge. At Chrysler, Exner started in the advanced design studio. He was patient, methodical. He studied what the competition was doing, especially GM's Harley Earl, who'd pioneered tailfins inspired by the Lockheed P-38 fighter plane. But Earl's fins were modest, almost apologetic. Exner saw the potential for something more dramatic. By 1955, Exner revolutionized automotive design with the Forward Look line of automobiles at Chrysler, where he later served as vice president of styling. The Forward Look. Even the name was aggressive. Forward thinking, a statement of intent. And when the 1957 models debuted, Chrysler launched all new models introducing cars that were long, low, wide, and featured sweeping tail fins, designs that caused a sensation within the North American auto industry. Plymouth's design was so revolutionary that Chrysler used the slogan, "Suddenly, it's 1960," to promote the new car. Think about that. It's 1956, and Chrysler is claiming their cars look like they're from 1960. That's not marketing hyperbole. That's a declaration of war on every other manufacturer in Detroit. The 1957 Chrysler products, Plymouth, Dodge, DeSoto, Chrysler, Imperial, were radical departures from anything else on American roads. The fins weren't modest ornaments. They were dramatic statements, soaring vertical stabilizers that made the cars look like jet fighters parked in suburban driveways. The bodies were lower, longer, wider. The greenhouse was lighter, airier. The whole package screamed modernity, speed, the jet age made manifest in steel and chrome. And where was Raymond Loewy? Still at Studebaker, watching his former employee steal the spotlight. Still taking credit for Studebaker designs that other people created. Still building his legend while Virgil Exner was actually living his. The 1957 Chrysler products were massively successful. Sales exploded. Chrysler's market share jumped. Suddenly, GM and Ford were scrambling to respond, their 1957 models looking instantly dated compared to Exner's vision. Design studios across Detroit were torn apart as management demanded more forward look. Virgil Exner had done what Raymond Loewy claimed to do. He'd changed the conversation. He'd set the direction. He'd become the designer everyone else had to respond to. And he'd done it by being everything Raymond Loewy wasn't. Hands-on, detail-oriented, personally invested in every line and curve. The story could end there. Exner triumphant, Loewy diminished. But life is rarely that clean. By the early 1960s, both men faced their own reckonings. Exner's 1962 Chrysler products were disastrous, downsized at exactly the wrong moment when the market wanted bigger cars. The forward look had evolved into something awkward and ungainly. Exner suffered a heart attack and was forced to step back. By 1963, he was out at Chrysler. His empire crumbled. And Raymond Loewy? In 1961, facing Studebaker's imminent collapse, he pulled his old trick one last time. Sequester a team in Palm Springs, give them an impossible deadline, and produce something revolutionary. The result was the Studebaker Avanti, one of the most stunning automotive designs of the era, created by Tom Kellogg, Bob Andrews, and John Epstein, while Loewy played creative director. The Avanti couldn't save Studebaker. The company was too far gone. But it saved Loewy's reputation. Once again, a brilliant design emerged from Raymond Loewy Associates. And once again, Loewy's name was in lights, while the actual designers remained in shadow. But here's the thing. By 1963, nobody cared about Studebaker. The forward look, Exner's forward look, had defined the late 1950s and early 1960s. Every car on American roads bore its influence. GM copied it, Ford copied it, American Motors copied it. Even European manufacturers took note. Virgil Exner had won. Not permanently, nobody wins permanently in the car business, but decisively. He'd proven that he didn't need Raymond Loewy. He'd proven that he was, in fact, the superior automotive designer, capable of creating a coherent vision across an entire corporation's product line. And Raymond Loewy? He remained Raymond Loewy until the day he died in 1986. Famous, celebrated, honored. His obituaries mentioned the Avanti, Skylab, Air Force One, but they didn't mention the 1957 Chryslers, because even Loewy couldn't claim credit for those. Those belonged to the man he'd fired, the man he'd tried to suppress, the man who'd committed the unforgivable sin of being more talented than his boss. What do we learn from the Loewy-Exner war? First, that credit is power. Loewy understood this instinctively. Control the narrative, and you control history. The fact that Exner is actually listed as the sole inventor on the design patent for the 1947 Studebaker didn't matter when every magazine article praised Loewy's revolutionary post-war design. Second, that revenge is best served in tailfins. Exner could have spent his career bitter and defeated. Instead, he channeled his anger into creation. The forward look wasn't just good design. It was a middle finger to everyone who dismissed him, stolen credit from him, pushed him aside. Third, that talent finds a way. Loewy tried to control Exner, then tried to exclude him. It didn't matter. Exner's vision was too strong, his skill too obvious. The market recognized genius even when the establishment tried to suppress it. But there's a darker lesson too. Both men, brilliant as they were ultimately defeated by forces larger than themselves. Exner's health failed. Loewy's client base dried up. The automotive industry moved on, as it always does. The forward look became dated. The Avanti became a footnote. New designers emerged with new visions. In the end, the cars remain. The 1947 Studebaker, revolutionary in its integration. The 1957 Plymouth Belvedere, dramatic in its fins. The 1961 Avanti, as stunning in its minimalism. These are the artifacts of a war fought with sketches and clay instead of weapons. And in museums, at car shows, in the garages of collectors, these cars tell the real story. Not the sanitized version in design history books, but the messy human story of ambition, betrayal, genius, and revenge. Virgil Exner died in 1973, largely forgotten by the general public. Raymond Loewy lived another 13 years, celebrated until the end. But walk into any gathering of car enthusiasts, mention the forward look, and watch faces light up. Say Virgil Exner, and heads nod in recognition. The man who was fired for going around his boss. The man who was pushed out of Studebaker. The man whose credit was stolen. That man changed automotive design forever. Raymond Loewy built a design empire. But Virgil Exner built the cars that defined an era. History remembers both of them. But car people, real car people, know who actually moved the needle. This is Verlin's Autotorium. Now you know more of the true story. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into automotive history.